What's up, basketball fans? Welcome to the Raptors Report. It is time to talk about the Toronto Raptors because ever since Scotty Barnes has come back from injury, the Raptors have been playing better basketball and winning more games, which begs the question, should the Raptors attempt to make the playoffs or try to tank, which would be more beneficial in the long run? I will be discussing both sides and ultimately give you my take at the end of the video. Also, some exciting news, guys. I will be posting a lot more of my videos on Spotify. So if you're like me, where you're stuck in traffic, and you like to listen to podcasts, Spotify may be a great place to hear some of my videos moving forward as well. I'll try to upload this one as well. I'm not very tech savvy, believe it or not, despite being a YouTuber, but I'll try to upload this video to Spotify as well. So let's get into today's video. So as it currently stands, after beating the Miami Heat, the Toronto Raptors rank 13 in the Eastern Conference. Now that doesn't seem, too bad in terms of tank odds, but when you talk about some of the teams that are ahead of them, like Charlotte Hornets, who just lost the Melo Ball for several weeks, you got teams like the Bulls, who are looking to blow up their parts. Brooklyn Nets will be selling their veterans as well. And then you got the Pistons, who might just come crashing down to earth. So, I mean, those are four teams that are ahead of the Toronto Raptors currently. And it wouldn't be a far stretch to say that the Toronto Raptors could possibly make the play-in tournament this season. Now, what are some of the benefits of a team like the Toronto Raptors trying to make the playoffs rather than tank? Let's talk about it. When the Raptors traded away Rudy Gay about a decade ago, they were ready to sell off Kyle Lowry to the New York Knicks. We know what happened. James Dolan nixed that trade. And the rest was history. The Raptors won the championship several years later, and Kyle Lowry was a big part of that. And just that season in particular, they ended up surprising everyone, including a lot of Raptors fans, and winning a lot of games and making the playoffs. And the rest is history as well. Now, let's talk about some of the benefits of making the playoffs. For a young team like the Toronto Raptors, what could they possibly benefit from making a play-in tournament? Well, let's talk about playoff experience. When we talk about young players, let's use Kyle Lowry. I'm not saying he was the exact situation that some of players like Scotty Barnes is or Grady Dick or IQ or RJR. But when you talk about you look at Kyle Lowry, look at how many playoff struggles he went through before he finally just broke out in that championship run. And I think that's what we talk about when we talk about playoff experience is really key, but particularly for a group like the Toronto Raptors. You look at RJ Barrett, you look at Emmanuel Quickly, and you look at Scotty Barnes as well, who have individually made the playoffs, but this is going to be their first time making the playoffs together. It really helps them figure out each other, but also as a team, it kind of gives you an idea. Maybe it gives the Raptors an idea on evaluating how they feel about RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, how they feel about this core and what their ceiling could be. There's certain signs that a lot of managements can see well before fans can. It might be a sweep, for all we know, but there are certain things you pick up in the playoffs. Coaches are great at that. I'm sure Masai Ujiri will pick up on that as well. And it really gives you an idea of how you want to construct your roster moving forward and how you can better it in terms of competition as well. So again, it would be great for a young core like the Toronto Raptors to be able to play together, gain experience, and really just feed off each other in the playoffs. And also, it's a good opportunity to see the Raptors' new head coach in a playoff setting, see if he's a long-term head coach as well, right? But besides that, again, I want to go back to how the Raptors won the championship. I think it's important to note that no one is expecting the Raptors, if they were to make the play-in tournament, to go to the second or third round. But what is important is to build on that season after season. When you look at the Raptors, they made the Eastern Conference Finals. Of course, they lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers, but that was really important. The previous seasons of failing and not playing well in the playoffs ultimately led them to performing well and making the Eastern Conference Finals that particular season. And I think when we talk about young players, that is the key part, is that not so much that you expect the Raptors to surprise a lot of teams. They're not going to beat teams, most likely the top four teams in the playoffs of the first round. But the experience is important, but also just to build upon that success and just slowly build it up, brick by brick, just how you put a house together. So I think that is very important for a team like the Toronto Raptors as well. But we do have to talk about what are the benefits of a team like the Toronto Raptors tanking as compared to the playoffs. Let's talk about this from the tanking point of view. Now, as you look at the toughest schedules remaining in the NBA, you look at the Toronto Raptors, they are 13th in the NBA. They have the 13th toughest schedule still remaining in the NBA. And again, you got some opponents which are considered easy, but when you look at the 76ers, you're still playing them three times once the 76ers get healthy. Those aren't exactly easy games as well. So maybe perhaps the Raptors aren't too far from tanking, or are they? As the Raptors are currently constructed, they are a good team. And considering, like I mentioned earlier in the video, some of the opponents are most likely to sell off a lot of their veteran pieces, which will ultimately help the Raptors move up a little bit more in the standings. And one name I want to keep mentioning in terms of the Raptors absolutely have to capitalize on this particular player and treating him as Jakob Poeltl. We know the Raptors tried this weird no center on the roster essentially, and just playing five out. And the Raptors were terrible defensively. They just had that Tampa season. And if the Raptors truly want to tank, it is to trade Jakob Poeltl, who's 29 years old, about to be 30, and he just doesn't exactly fit in the timeline. By the time the Raptors are ready to compete in 3 to 5 seasons, he's going to be 33, 34. So why not? For a team that's rebuilding, why not get the value you can? Centers are still very rare around the NBA, particularly what Jakob brings to the table, which is good defensive centers. A lot of contenders like the Lakers could use them, maybe even the Warriors as well, right? Depending how desperate they are. So if you're able to get a first round pick, why not do it now? Why not tank? And why not get a superstar? For those that may be against tanking, here's my point about why the Raptors, I think personally, should tank. When you look at the Raptors' 30-year history, how many superstars can you say the Raptors have had? I personally can point to two in Kawhi Leonard and Vince Carter. And how did they acquire those two? One was through a trade. Well, technically, the other one was through a trade too during draft night, but they did draft Vince Carter, you could say. And those are some of the best methods to acquire a superstar, particularly for a team like the Raptors. Toronto is a beautiful city, but we can absolutely admit that not a lot of NBA players want to go there, particularly star players. So the Raptors signing a superstar through free agency is already crossed off the list. So what is the next step of acquiring a superstar? Trades. But when you talk about trades, it's so much more different than even when the Raptors acquired Kawhi Leonard. You notice star players have so much more power now, and they can simply tell teams that they do not wish to go there, as opposed to what we saw with even Kawhi Leonard. So you scratch that off the list. What is the next best way of acquiring a superstar is through draft class. And what better draft class to really draft a good player than this class? Names like Ace Bailey, names like Cooper Flagg, names like Dylan Harper, names like Nolan Terore, names like Dylan Harper. You know, you get VJ Edgecombe. All of these names are very popular names, and for a good reason. They're very talented players. And the Raptors would absolutely be foolish not to tank this season. So, as the Raptors are currently constructed, they simply aren't good enough to win in the playoffs, but they also aren't bad enough to tank and get a top three, top five pick. They'll probably end up picking seventh or eighth if the lottery balls, if they get a little bit lucky, maybe they jump up. But just in terms of where they'll finish, it's really hard to see a team like the Raptors out tank teams like the Wizards and the Utah Jazz and other teams as well. So ultimately, the goal in the NBA is to win a championship. And what do championships teams have is superstar players. And how do you get a superstar player is get a top five, get a top three pick, and the Raptors absolutely have to do that. And I think it's important when we talk about that because with respect to RJ, with respect to Emmanuel quickly, Scotty's really good. I personally don't think he's a number one option. He's going to be a complimentary, absolutely great number two option on a championship team. You need that true number one option. You need to get Cooper Flagg. You need to get Dylan Harper. You need to get Ace Bailey. You need to get some of these names. And I'm telling you, these kind of opportunities do not come every day. For a team like the Raptors, if they make the if they try to attempt to make the playoffs, let me say this, it's going to be very difficult because ultimately you go from a top five pick to end up drafting in the lottery, and then you're just adding really good role players to this team, and you're going to end up being a first round, second round exit team, and then the Raptors will be forced to, pay RJ Barrett in a couple years. So then it becomes more complicated in terms of salary cap and just how difficult it's becoming in terms of money and spending that on your roster as well. So again, the Raptors would be foolish not to try and tank. They need this, and it's very important for the Raptors to really secure that superstar player just to really surround Scotty Barnes with talent, guys. And I'm not saying he doesn't have talent around him, but it's very important to get that true number one option. And the Raptors have a good opportunity to do it. So why not do it this summer? Get that draft pick, get a high draft pick, try to tank, and really just get a top five pick, which is really important for the Raptors. So again, this is going to be a topic that we're probably going to be discussing as the season goes along, particularly, right before the trade deadline to see who the Raptors are trading, if they're going to trade away players like Jakob Poeltl. So we'll see what happens. But I'm very, very curious to hear what you guys think about this. Seems like a lot of fans are divided on Twitter. I did post a poll. A lot of fans want to make the playoffs. But I personally think the Raptors should be tanking, and that's the best course of way of acquiring a superstar player. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And I did bring back trivia questions, guys. I know I've been a little bit, slacking off a little bit on trivia questions, but I do have a trivia question for you today. And that trivia question is, since Jacoby Walter has been playing so well, let's talk about him. What city was Jacoby Walter born in? Was it A, LA? Was it B, Dallas? Was it C, New York? Or was it D, Oklahoma? So whoever answers this trivia question correctly first in the comment section gets a shout out in my next video. So that will be it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. And again, don't forget to check out Spotify. I will try to upload this video on Spotify as well. If not, I will mention it in the details in my next video. So make sure to tune into that, and that will be it. So thank you so much once again for watching, and I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.